I know, I know. I'm still then saying, welcome to the devrel show, another episode of the devrel show. Always excited, you know me, always happy to do that show. Now, you also know the fact that, like, I still didn't took the time to clean up my background. There's still all those wire that look like shit. Like, I'm not a good tech person right now. If you look at like all those wires behind me not being properly set up, but things are working and it's just life being life right now. So I'm not ashamed of my background. Okay, a little bit. It could be better, but anyway, again, always happy to do the devrel show because even if the devrel show with Fred, that show is really not about me, it's about the guest. And I'm lucky, certainly I always have amazing people with me, and today's not different. I have William with me. How is life, William?
Thank you so much, Fred, for having me on the show. I'm super excited. By the way, I think your cables are not doing as bad as they could be, but it's really nice to be here. And yeah, life's good out here in Oslo.
Yeah, Oslo. I was telling William before the show, like I've never been to Oslo. That's on my list of places I want to visit. But if I want to be honest and really transparent, every time someone talks to me about a place I've never been, I was like, yeah, it's on my list of place I want to go because I would love to visit like every corner of the world. It just does not happen because again, life. But it's really Oslo is really on my list since a long time. I was supposed to go at some point when I was at Fitbit, and it just did not happen. My colleague went instead of me, so I was a little bit jealous, but happy for him that he had that opportunity. But yeah, with that said, happy to have you on the show, William. Thanks for being on the show. It's always a real pleasure. And with that said, please tell me, who are you?
Whew, that's an interesting question. Uh, shouldn't be as difficult, but basically, I'm William, and I'm the founder of Hackmamba. I typically spend my days helping others be better at Hackmamba. And what does Hackmamba do? We help software teams write technical content. So content to help them acquire software engineering and developer users, and also enable them either with the right marketing content or developer documentation. That's what Hackmamba does. We're an agency, and I just lead the team out there. Aside that, I'm out here in Norway. I'm either traveling. I'm learning to fly planes, so I do that when the weather isn't shitty. Um,
Nice.
I Yeah, I play basketball like I just did this this evening, and I just go out to drink beer sometimes. That's it.
I love that. I love that. We're gonna come back a little bit about your company. I want to learn more about exactly what you do.
Mhm.
As mentioned in the description of the show, so we're going to talk about technical writing. If I want to be totally honest, the first time you reach out to me and it was like, "Hey, Fred, like you're looking for a guest, would like to be on the show," and I look at your profile and I was like, yeah, he's not a developer advocate. And like this show, I was like, I want to get developer advocates on the show. And I had that idea for 1 second. After that, I looked at your
Mm.
profile and was like, oh no, fuck that, Fred, you're stupid. Like, yes, like he does not have like the developer advocate title, but like this is part of what he is doing with his business. You were like in developer experience, you were a technical writer yourself, product management. Like you did a lot of role and if now I'm looking in your because I have a memory but like in your LinkedIn profile a couple of years ago though you were technical writer slash developer advocate at Scotch.io. I
Yeah.
would like to learn a little bit about that experience. You basically stayed there 3 years, and if I remember, Scotch.io was like a website with like a lot of tutorials and documentation. I
Yeah.
think DigitalOcean acquire
But
Scotch.io when I was there, so it's why I remember.
yeah. Oh, so you know Chris Sevilla then?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fantastic guy. So yeah, at Scotch, this was I think where I started like my career in tech. So I've done everything from technical writing, developer advocacy, software engineering, product management, everything except product design. But I did start out as a self-taught engineer, taught myself web development, and then I figured I could write. So I could write about the stuff I was learning. So I started writing, you know, everything and anything from JavaScript methods. I think if I go back to 2016, 2017, I was writing about React.map and .reduce functions on Medium. And that's how I met Chris Sevillea, also through my other friend called Chris Codebeast. Um, and I would contribute to like Scotch articles. And then at some point, Chris was like, "Hey, could you help me like manage things a bit more? So manage the authors, review content, help create content, post up content for some of like our partners." Then I did all of that. And aside writing, I figured I could also talk about the technologies as I learned them. That's a great warning.
Yeah, I
So
actually, you know what? Sorry about that. You were talking, and I realized that like one guest out of two, they
Mhm.
freaked out a little bit because like there's a warning sign and like they read it. And after that, most of them laugh. But like I really should warn the guests that like, hey, there is a ban here. It's not a real
Yeah,
warning. It's just a joke. Like everything is going well. The show is going well. So sorry about
yeah,
that. But yeah,
yeah. No worries. It's no worries. So, I figured I could talk about you know content and technical writing, and also organize communities. So that was the next thing I did. Was I'm from Nigeria originally, and in Nigeria, there I started organizing communities of developers, JavaScript developers, Angular devs. We would have these meetups that went from 200 people, and
yeah.
the last couple of meetups were around like 800, 900 people, and it was still a meetup. So while doing this, I was also talking about products that I liked. I wasn't necessarily selling them, but at that time I was talking about Cloudinary. I loved Auth0, so I was just wearing like their merch. Anyone that looked at me, I tell them I preach Auth0 to them. That was when we had like developer preachers. What did we even call ourselves then?
Was it
It's like
maybe like developer evangelist?
evangelist. Yeah, it was like developer evangelist exactly. So I would talk about anything and everything, paid or not. And I would spend my money to go to conferences and meetups and talk about technologies I have zero affiliation with.
Hmm.
But over time these companies reached out to say, "Hey, you're doing this thing at this meetup, could you talk about our tool?" And would give you like some bucks. I'm always always happy to do that. So I was sort of like an indie developer advocate at that time, just shilling products, traveling to the US, talking about communities in Africa, building with the Jamstack, then um, teaching people, organizing community, volunteering as well. That was a lot of like a huge part of what I did at that time. So that was my developer advocate experience, and all through, I was also writing technical content. Probably written like a shit ton of technical articles to date. Um, I, I think at the peak, I was writing 8 to 10 blog posts a month by
Oh
hand.
wow.
Yeah, and there was no AI then, so there was no way I could generate all that. I was writing them tutorials, top of funnel content by hand.
And oh, there are so many things I want to talk about with everything you've said. So the first thing, just the last thing you've said, uh, if you don't write technical tutorial, you may have heard William say like, "Oh, I was writing 8 like technical tutorial per month," and in your head it's like, "Nah, it's like 2 per week," but like it's a lot of work. Like if you want to write like a proper good technical depth tutorial, you need to like you may have some expertise, but like when you write those things, you don't have expertise in everything. So you need to like learn a little bit, be sure like what you're gonna write makes sense. You need to think about the
Mhm.
structure of your tutorial. You need to write it down. You need to do the code example. You may even like leave, I don't know, a GitHub like repo with some like of the code that people can use them. You need to test those things. You need to do like maybe some graphics to go there, choose the right image. You need to review your stuff. Like there is a lot of work to have like a proper, like great tutorials
Yeah,
that you need to do. So like 8 for me, 8 tutorial per month is an amazing number. So I just wanted to be sure that like people
yeah,
understand that like it's not a small feature. It's a lot of work.
yeah.
And
It was, and again, um that was how I started Hackmamba, from writing this many content, and they were really good. That I kept getting more like requests to create even more, and I figured, oh, I cannot do this alone, but maybe I could scale this into a company, and yeah, that's how Hackmamba was born. creating high quality technical content, and a lot of them.
That's I like that. That's a great story because you. I want to come back to Hackmamba, but just before I go to other things, it's like you saw that what you were doing was providing values to people, but you were like, hey, you know what, I can do more. Like I would like to do more, but I can do more, and the solution is like to build a business around it to continue to provide value to more people. So I really like, it's a great story. But before like going to like specifically talking about a company, because I want to learn more. um you were talking two things that I wanted to come back. The first one, you were talking about like you're from Nigeria, and you were talking about the community there. It's another place on my list that I would like to go. I know I said like every places, but this one's for real. Because at a previous company, when I had a team, the first person that I hired was a technical writer, and she was from Nigeria. So I never been there, but I had a small taste about like the tech community there, and she was sharing stuff with me. And the community there is incredible. You just say like, oh, we had meet up with 200 people. I'm like, what the heck? Like we don't even have that in San Francisco most of the time, where like it's the tech hub and the place to be if you're tech folks. And like the community there were like from, again, I've never been there, but from what I've seen in the web on Twitter, what like my Nigerian friends like share with me, like it's all lovely people that just want to help every other people, and they want you to be successful, and they care about the technology, and they care about people. And I just wanted to highlight that, because I think there are places in the world. I had the chance to travel a lot and to work because of my job. I had the chance to work with community in different countries, where even places where I didn't like set a foot physically. And
Mhm.
Nigerian are like amazing. Like it's an amazing tech community there.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's massive. I mean, there's 200 million people, so the likelihood of finding a large community is a lot higher. So yeah, they're really ambitious people as well. So a lot of people interested in technology.
Yeah, and good people in tech. I mean, I would tell like the sometimes the struggle from people I know in Nigeria is that like they would like to work for a tech company, and usually you would prefer for different reasons, like maybe trying to work for a US based company, and it's difficult because people see like the time zone difference, or you're not in the same country. But I highly encourage you, if you have the chance, hire someone from that country. Like amazing people, really great resources. Like if you can deal with like a little bit of time zone difference, if you can do like essaying, some essaying discussion. I mean, when I had my technical writer, she was in Nigeria. We had about 3-4 hours per day together, and the rest of the time we're not really working at the same time. But it was more than enough to sync and be sure we're going in the right direction, and me help her to be successful, and her like telling me like what she needs to be successful. So again, it's just me like trying to, I want everybody to get hired, but I know it's often a little more difficult where you're in remote country, there's not like central part of Europe or in North America, let's say. So but like give a chance to actually, not even a chance, it's like you just give yeah, give a chance to amazing people, not because like they deserve it, they're just amazing folks. I don't know, sorry, i'm
Yeah.
i'm babbling right now, but like it was important to me to kind of like say that, because I had such a great experience, and the community there is
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah, it is. And I know time zones are never, a problem for Nigerians, especially when it's like remote work. During my time, we would work 12, 14 hours. That was like a regular work day. Because, you would have to start working from anywhere from 2 to 4 p.m. and you would just continue to 12 a.m. And that's normal. That's a normal day. No one's complaining. No one, I promise you, no one's complaining.
I know I was the one complaining. I was like, no, stop doing that. Like, it's fine if we only work together like 2-3 hours. Like, try to work in like quote
Yeah.
unquote normal hours for you. Like, you need to have a life outside of work, but it's totally true. I was going against, because I was like, no, you need to have like a work life balance. But yeah, no, that's kind of the reality. Um, the last thing from the first like moment you started to talk a little bit about your experience, you were talking about like all those things that you were doing on your own, kind of like a handy developer advocate. And I feel like most developer advocates, we started like that. Like we started to do like those, like, oh, helping at meetups, or starting to speak a little bit, or starting to write some article on our own, because we are passionate about like sharing what we know, helping other people. And I feel like you went through that path, like many folks who went from like, I do this on my free time, to like, holy shit, like I'm getting paid to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's important to
you're
talk about that.
yeah, yeah, you're right. The thing is, at least now I understand it better, but there isn't a university for where you can go study developer advocacy or developer relations, right? So the best you can do is combine a lot of all these skills, get as much proof as possible that you can show someone, right? I don't know what an entry level developer advocate looks like, if there is even a job like that, because you require some expertise
Yeah.
beforehand, right? So there isn't really like entry level developer advocate. You developer advocacy starts from like mid level at least. And what entry level developer advocacy looked like was what I think I was doing then, which was volunteering for communities, writing a shit ton of articles again, creating content, speaking at events, volunteering to facilitate. And all these were typically most times for free, building a portfolio,
Mhm.
just talking on Twitter, helping amplify stuff. If anyone says anything, I'm just looking for how to help and how to provide value. And all these, I just kept, acquiring social credit, as my buddy Babajide once told me. Is you just keep acquiring this social credit from people without knowing it unconsciously, and over time it builds up. And before you know it, someone is offering you a job as a developer advocate, and they expect you to have like experience doing XYZ things, but you've never had a job as a developer advocate. But this isn't an entry level position either way. Um, so those bits, I feel like that's what a lot of people, at least looking to get started with developer advocacy, should consider is create a ton of content, find a community, be part of it, contribute to open source. I used to talk about Gatsby a lot. I became a
Mhm.
maintainer from that at some point. Um, yeah, and just do stuff, do free stuff. Someone will pay you for it eventually. That's usually the rule of the streets, as I like to see it.
Yeah, no, and I agree. As much as like part of me ate to say like do free stuff, because like I mean, like you need to get money for a living. It's kind of like the way to go, but be intelligent or wise about how you do free stuff. Do free stuff that is public. So once someone knock
Yeah,
at your door, or you knock at someone's door, and like you're looking to
yeah.
have a job, you're like, hey, you know what? I don't have like professional experience per se, but oh, hey, look at those like public articles on like DevTO,
Yeah.
Medium, on my own blog, or look at like the project that I put on GitHubs, or look at like the recording of my talk at that conference that is on YouTube. So
Hmm.
all those things that are like, try to make them public, because that's currency that you can use to show you have some experience. Like it used to be a time, not with developer advocacy, but like when I started as a software developer, you needed a formal diploma to get a job. It was
Yeah.
unthinkable to get a job without a diploma, even if it was like a
Yeah.
basic, or not a big. In my case, it was a basic diploma. It was kind of like the equivalent of like a college degree, but like it was only 1 year without the common courses, or like
Hmm.
philosophy, English, maths, and those things. It was like just software development, but I had a diploma, so you didn't absolutely need to go to university, but you needed the diploma. Today, as for developers, some company will require you diplomas. I think it's bullshit most of the time, but in the end, it's more about proving that you can do the job. But with developer advocacy, as you said, William, there is no school out there about that.
Yeah.
There is no diploma you can get. So you need to build your credibility by doing those kind of things. And yes, at the beginning, it means doing it for free.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you have fun also doing that. But you build
Oh,
your
yeah.
credibility, you build your experience, and that give you that opportunity. And I
Yes, you're right.
really love I really love like what you said. You build. How do you say that? You build social credit.
Social credit.
Social credit. Yeah. So when I was talking, that made me thought about when I was talking about those things. before. I called that basically you work on your personal branding, but like I like the social credit part. But this is basically how I got my first job. I know, folks, if it's not the first time you're looking at, you're watching the devrel show, I'm repeating myself, but it's basically I was talking to someone in a coffee chat recently about my experience, and I was like, it's Microsoft that knocked at my door at some point, and I said like, hey, you know what, we're looking for someone in Montreal. You live in Montreal. We asked around, and your name come up a couple of times, and I was like,
Yeah.
what the, why, how my name come up? And after I thought about it, it was like, oh, you know what? I was attending some meetups. I was talking to people. I started to give talks. I was writing blog posts. I was active within my community. So I probably created like those kind of like social credits, and people are like,
Yeah.
hey, you know, Fred is not a bad guy. Fred is helping us, or Fred has spoke this, or Fred has an expertise in this and that. And they knock on my door and they say like, hey, you know what? Uh, you're kind of doing the job of a developer advocate on your free time. Would like to be paid to do it.
Yeah.
And I said
Yeah.
no. Actually,
That's
the
the
first
formula. You did? You said
I
no?
did, for real. The real story is that I said no because it was I don't know, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I wanted to do that job, but not at Microsoft because at that time,
Yeah.
Microsoft was the evil company, and
Was
like I was
yeah.
more like the open source type of person. And I
Mhm.
said no the first time, and it reached out to me a second time, and I was like, no, I don't think so. And they were good. The third time they reached out to me, they were like, hey, we have that guy from our team is going to be in Montreal. He would like to go for coffee with you. And on top of that, I was not speaking English at all. So it was like, this guy is a French Quebecois. He speaks French. His first language is French. So you won't even have to force
Mhm.
yourself. You can have like a natural discussion. It costs you nothing to do that. And I was like, okay, maybe I can go have a coffee with that guy. And the guy was
Yeah.
amazing, and they basically sold me the job because the job was not to be a Microsoft person. My job was to be an open source guy, open data guy within Microsoft. And I was like, okay, now I can naively try to change things within Microsoft, which is like real hard to do when you're not on the top, because like it's a big boat that you need to turn around, which is nearly impossible. But I hope I made my marks a little bit. Like I try to influence things a little bit at my level. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, sorry about that. Long story to say, like I said no at the beginning, and actually that was a pretty good job. I mean, like they really, my team, until 2 years or 2 years and a half after in the role, we changed manager, his vision changed, but like until there, my team was really like, hey, Fred, like we need to be more open, we need to work better with other projects, we need to talk about open source, we need to be more open source, we need to play well with other people. And that was a pretty good job. That was really formative too, because that was my
Mhm.
first job. And mostly everywhere I was going, people hated me because I was working at the evil company. So that was a good practice for working in places where it was a little bit easier to do my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, I'm sorry, I always said like, okay, let's talk about Hackmamba after. Let's talk. And now I feel it's the time. Uh, I want to learn more about the company. First maybe a little bit of yeah, I know you already talked about that. I was going to say like maybe a little bit of history about how you created Hackmamba, but you tell us the story a little
Mhm.
bit. But it's been like nearly 4 years now. You're still there. You're still the founder CEO. So I assume things are going well. So
Yeah.
so what's the company itself? I like the description on LinkedIn. It may feels marketing, but I really love it. It's like helping software teams drive revenue growth and product adoption through written product focused technical content, which I just love. So talk to us a little bit about the company. Like what is your service offering? What are you doing? What type of customer you work in? Everything you
Yeah.
want to share. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for that. So with Hackmamba, again, I started it out of the need to fix broken technical content out there. I read a lot of blog posts that were very like heavy on the marketing side, or they were just heavy on the product side. So the team didn't get any value from it, or the users didn't get any value from it. And when I wrote, I fixed that. I fixed that by passively selling the product, but also being like very educative and teaching basically. And that's why I got a lot of people reaching out to say, hey, like, write for us. When I couldn't handle it, I decided to find technical writers that are engineers first. So they have a good technical background.
Mm.
I know the writing part, that would come over time as they write and they learn and will make like very strict reviews. They learn. So I put together a team of like 10 authors, and that's how the company started. I started part time in 2021, and I did it part time for 2 years plus until last year in August. I left my job as a product manager, and then I decided to work on it full time. I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to be serious. Put the clap in.
I know. I just
Oh.
want to celebrate like the move to like part time to full time. I mean, like that's a great achievement. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks. But I figured if I want to grow this, because I still saw the demand for it, right? For great technical content, it would always be there, in my opinion. But also around the same time last year, that's when we got all the AI buzz, and GPT-4, I think, was either launch or was just in the corner. And everyone I knew was like, hey, William, you're out of business. You said you don't want to work in McDonald's. You're definitely going there. Not any shade to people that work in McDonald's, but you're not going to have a job soon. And I asked myself, why did I start Hackmamba in the first place? And it was to create original technical content written by engineers that are great writers for other engineers. So we stuck with our ethos, which is we're going to create original technical content for SaaS teams. And we work with SaaS teams in two ways. We either work with the marketing team or the product team. On the marketing side, we're creating content across the buyer journey or funnel, whatever anyone wants to call it. But basically, it's either top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel content to drive awareness, consideration, and decision on the buyer side. And the buyers typically are developers. Only for a couple of our partners do we have the buyers be, non-technical folks. This is on the marketing side. On the product side, we help teams create great documentation, right? So we look at someone's documentation and we're like, no, this is shit. Developers are clawing their eyes out. You
Yep.
can definitely do better. So we come in, we restructure the docs, we map out the developer journey. We take like a task-based or an intent-based approach to redoing the structure of the documentation. Then we actually write the content, put fixing like telemetry so we know when what works and what doesn't. And at the end of the day, what we get is faster integration times on the product side. We get happier developers that are not smashing keyboards because they just cannot integrate with the company. On the marketing side, our partners are getting more developers. They're getting better discovery on their product. So they're ranking for some high value keywords that are targeted at developers. And these keywords are typically, or at least these content aren't like the typical SEO fluff. We create differentiated SEO
Good.
content where we're fusing like domain expertise into the content, and it has to be educative. If it's, we say we are not an SEO agency, that's like baseline, we all communicate internally. So we only make strong SEO considerations when we create content, because the content has to be written from experience and research, and we should be teaching. So that's a long explanation of what Hackmamba does, but we
No,
basically help teams acquire and enable developers.
that
That's
is
the short
perfect
form.
because you were talking about your company, but at the same time, you were just talking also about writing the importance of like having great developer documentation, the importance of having great content. I mean, I worked at a place once where like they asked me to create like SEO specific content, and they didn't really care about the quality of the content. It was like just we just want those keywords, and I'm like, that's not the way to go. That's bullshit, and
Yeah.
like it's not. It will probably work short terms, but I'm not even sure if it's going to work. I'm not even sure if you're going to be able to convert people. That's just going to
Yeah.
be like a
Doesn't
pure
convert.
bad SEO play. So I like the fact that, like you said, hey, content is important. And we're going to think about SEO when we do it, but not the other way around. We're like, oh, we're going to
Yeah.
start with SEO. And after that, we're going to think about content. So that's really important from my point of view, and I really appreciate that you said exactly that, and I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the way to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Especially because
It's
like also developer documentation is undervalued so much by like different companies where they're like, hey, they're a developer, they're gonna know how to use the product, and like sometimes it's true, most of the time it's not. I was giving a talk about developer documentation, I don't know, maybe a month ago at Civo Navigate in Berlin, and it was really about like your developer, like the title was like developer documentation, your secret weapon. I mean, like
Mhm.
that, and it was a talk about like basically highlighting the importance of great developer documentation with a lot of like quick tips and tricks about like, okay, you're not going to become like a technical writer after that talk, but if you don't have anyone in that role, or here's here's the thing that like are important that you think about and how you should think about when you write your
Yeah,
documentation. So
yeah. It
yeah,
is.
no, that's so important.
Yeah, developer documentation is super important. And one of the reasons I decided to double down on Hackmamba, actually like go full time, was I worked at a company as a product manager in charge of integrations. And I saw how difficult it was to integrate. It was a logistics tech company. And I saw how difficult it was for the different like e-commerce systems that had different specifications to integrate with the system, just because the docs wasn't like really great. They had API specifications with parameters and all that stuff well written. But then the developer journey, the experience of actually integrating, considering the context of the developer that is integrating, that was just completely missing. Most docs just say me, me, me. Like, here's my stuff, here's my API, here's how I've written my API. Here, figure it out. They don't think about the developer that's going to integrate with their solution. And if I've learned anything in business, it's that it's never about you. It's never about what you've built or who you are. It's about the person that's going to buy from you. If you actually plan on selling, at least. So that's the approach we take to documentation: is how do we get someone out there who understand their context and then we write for them. So I've seen, like, that's why folks praise Stripe's documentation, for instance, because Stripe's documentation wasn't written for engineers at Stripe. It was written for engineers outside Stripe. So that's sort of how I think about documentation at a really high level.
I love that. Every time someone's talk about like great documentation experience or great documentation example, it's always like Stripe, Twilio, and
Stripe.
GitHub, like those three. But
Yeah.
Stripe is always like the top number one. That wasn't my talk when like because I know people always ask me like, okay, which documentation you can check, and I always like for me it's like Stripe,
Stripe.
Twilio, GitHub, but Stripe is always there. Like their documentation is really really good. Um,
Yeah.
we talked a lot, and I know for the kind of like demo part, there is like a technical writer roadmaps that you want to share about, and a writing course curriculum. So we're going to focus more like on the technical writing part, which is important because like part of a developer advocate journey, we have to do technical writing. Even when you have like technical writers team in your company, you still do as developer advocate some kind of writing. So I think it's important. But before we do that, there's still one topic I want to talk about because you bring it up, and I really want to have your opinion on that. You talk about AI, you talk about people telling you like, "Hey, you're gonna lose your job," and oh my god, I want your opinion on that because I try to a previous employer was like, hey, why are you spending time to write like those intro to specific topics document tutorials or actually blog posts? And I was like, yeah, they're important because people may not understand all the technologies we use within our product, so they need to understand that to like probably use their own product. And we're like, just use AI. And I did a test with ChatGPT, and I was like, write me an article on Argo CD, and that was like a big pit of shit fire. I don't know how to describe that, but that was like terrible. And it was not even a complicated topic. There was not even something like there was a lot of information about it out there. And I didn't have a great experience. And I know I'm not the most AI friendly person, so I may have bias when it comes to that. But so it's why I want like it's your full-time job to write documentation, actually maybe a little less as a founder, but it's still like your main focus. This is what your business does. what do you think about all those things like AI when it comes to technical writing, and like just share your thoughts.
Yeah. First, before I proceed, I'd like to say I'm not a pessimist. I actually organize the AI Mad Lab meetup in Oslo. So I organize it with a bunch of other guys. It's the fastest growing meetup, like AI focused event here in Oslo. So I'm really in the, maybe not in the driving seat, like I'm at least in the car. So very optimistic about AI. But then AI in content. Um, for us, it's been a blessing, and it's been a blessing in the way that you probably wouldn't guess. It's been a blessing in the fact that it's helped us stand out. Um, the moment GPT-4 came out, we got like a huge surge of new partners and folks that wanted us to create more original content for them.
Okay.
And the reason was because it's become so easy to create content, but so difficult to create high quality content. And
Mm,
with AI, a lot of teams will argue that, or a lot of people, with content creators will argue that if you create content with AI, you can go in and edit it. But this is them again looking at it from the creator standpoint, not the consumer standpoint. As a consumer, when you look at content and you're reading through it, you just have a feeling that this isn't original. This wasn't written by someone. And
yeah.
there are a lot of like telltale signs from context, like having, really recent context around the product, for instance. Because we write technical content, we're very product focused, as you could see on LinkedIn. We always like infuse product, and with startups, product context changes like every quarter most times. AI doesn't have that. We're able to bring that into the content.
Mm.
There's that, and then there's the storytelling. Have you ever tried to ask GPT-4 to tell you a story within like a particular theme? It just goes like off board, right? It doesn't say it like a person would, right? It doesn't understand that, oh, I do not mean storytelling by tell me like moonlight tales or bedtime stories, but just say like construct words in a certain way that it's just easily digestible and you just love what you're reading. There's that, and then there's the uncanny valley with AI that you just read something, it's AI, you're like, no, this is shit. I'm not continuing. Even if
Oh,
it's valuable, but you just feel like synthetic content isn't for you. You want something from someone, you want to learn something from someone. And also, people feel like, why am I reading this here when I could just go to Chat GPT and ask it, right?
exactly.
There's this subtle deception. People feel like they've just been deceived by being fed AI content when they could just get it themselves. So for these reasons, we've gotten a lot of our partners come to us and they're very strict with their requirements. We add it in our contracts now to see we create only human written content. We spend time to do that. So we've actually outlawed AI usage at Hackmamba. We do not use it for outline creation, for titles, topics, the actual content creation, not for distribution, not for strategy. We say if we're unable to write the content, so it's great, we go and read so that we can write. But we keep it original, and that's our brand currently. We're big fans of like AI. We know it has a place, but it has a place more as like a co-pilot to condense large amounts of data and say, hey, here's the key point, go think about this. But it should just help you think better. It shouldn't create for you, you do the creation. That's what we believe at Hackmom, and that's our approach to using AI at least. So we're exploring AI for a lot of like other different use cases, but still within the realm of is there something I've missed I should be thinking about? Is there a maybe a fact that I have, maybe mistakenly um, put out, right? And it
Mhm.
just points that out. So more of like a co-pilot that helps you think or helps you think better. But you should do the original thinking and you should do the original creation. That's how I think about AI and what we do at Hackmama.
I love that. I love that. So many good points, and I don't love it just because you were basically telling we don't use AI. I've heard that, but no, I think it makes so much sense. That's the problem also in in oh, no, I'm not going there. Sorry, I was thinking out loud about something like when it comes to developer advocacy, but like I'm really not going there. Actually, it's time for me to shut up, and I want you to show us the roadmap, the technical writer roadmap that you have, that you wanted to
Yeah.
talk with us. How to start in the field. So again, useful for technical writer, but I think that's going to be really useful for developer advocate too.
Yeah. Definitely. I'll share this, and so I have this here. I mean, I love to give a bit of context as to why. So we have this on roadmap.sh, amazing platform, amazing team behind this as well. I've used this personally to just look up what roadmaps in whatever career, whatever topic technology topic I'm looking to get into or study. So we decided to contribute a technical writing roadmap. And we do this because we have a community of technical writers and we want them to create content the right way. And not just that, technical writers are sometimes bounded by just writing tutorials or writing documentation. But to be like a proper technical writer that can contribute to growth of an organization, it's important to be well-rounded, or at least know what else you can study. What does growth path look like for a technical writer? What other side skills can you acquire as a technical writer? So I decided to condense everything I know into this roadmap, and we share this in our community for folks getting started or even experienced technical writers or developer advocates that want to write more. So just going over this, this roadmap cuts across writing the really technical stuff to writing the content for marketing, to either acquire, again, make developers aware of the product, help them consider buying that product, or actually buying the product. um I split this into different sections, from just an introductory section for someone just starting out, uh trying to understand who's the technical writer, what's the role of technical writers, what does growth for a technical writer looks like. And because this is a roadmap, it's sort of like a blueprint, like a roadmap. It doesn't have resources. You go figure out like the
Mhm.
rest. It's basically just saying, hey, go and search this on Google. That's what this is. So from introduction, we're going to like required skills, right? I feel like technical writers should have some technology expertise to a really good extent. If you want to be a well-rounded technical writer, you have to know how to like write code. This is
Yeah,
our our thesis. Others might argue, otherwise. But again, if you want to be a well-rounded technical writer, you should
I
know
agree.
how to code. Yeah. So there's also language proficiency. This is something we see people struggle with. Most of technical writing is done in English. So you're a better technical writer if you're a great English speaker as well. There's also written communication proficiency, just knowing how to write short sentences, long sentences. So I don't go into the details. We go over like required skills. Then we go into tooling. What tools do you use to write? What tools do you use to edit? Where do you post content, or not? How do you handle plagiarism? What format? Markdown, for instance, is the popular format or the writing form of choice for technical writers. That's something everyone should know. SEO tools. There's SEMrush, there's Ahrefs, there's some other URL monitor, all these different tools, just to have them top of mind as like this is sort of like tooling I need as a technical writer. Now we get to sort of like I would say, my favorite part, which is best practices. There are a lot of gems here. Most times when technical writers write, they assume they're writing for developers. So we go straight to the point. They forget that it's great to tell a story that hooks the reader, grabs their attention, holds it, and then ends with like a call to action, leaves them with something, leaves them with a feeling. That's what stories do. Stories leave you feeling some type of way at the end. So, how do you tell a good story? And then how do you sell? Because with every technical content you create, there has to be something in it for the company you're writing for, or for you, or for the tool, or the product. So how do you do that without just saying, hey, try this tool, or hey, sign up to this, right? How do you take a problem and then offer that tool as a solution without actually selling? Do you need to provide alternatives to that. Do you need to make it a suggestion rather than, than a command, for instance? So looking at those, crafting titles, handling call to actions, understanding user personas, right? Not just user personas, but user states.
Yeah.
Developers come in different states. Senior developers, there are senior developers who are currently developing. There are senior developers looking for general knowledge. There are senior developers looking to explore just the domain of a certain tool, for instance. So they're all senior developers, but they come in different states, and you need to understand that when writing. That's something you need to think about. Writing style guides, for instance, as a technical writer, you're going to receive these from teams. What do you expect in the writing style guide, and how do you follow one? So we went from these best practices to know to content research. How do you What are keywords? The average technical writer that writes only tutorials for a really long time just feels like content research ends in looking at GitHub issues, looking at Stack Overflow. But then if you're writing for a marketing team that wants to rank SEO wise, they start to talk about keywords. You need to know what those are. You need to know how the topic you're choosing ranks with other topics. So what's the topic score? Here we just put in the nitty gritties of conducting content research. Then we moved into types of technical content. I guess here, this is where we have from developer documentation. This is a bit warped here, but there's developer docs. API references are usually in developer documentation. Although developer documentation is sort of like the body of work. Excuse me. Yeah. So when talking about developer documentation, that's one kind. There's also help content. So what people sometimes call a knowledge base. That really isn't the developer documentation, but it's technical content in there, just not sometimes with code. What parts make up documentation, right? What do you need to think about? Do you need to think about documentation structure, API definitions, troubleshooting? Also, what tools are there to generate documentation? Swagger, Open API spec. That's something to know. Then we get to technical content marketing. Now, this is an interesting bit because here we're no longer looking at just writing tutorials for developers or documentation. We're looking at how can we create content that drives business growth, right? To do that, you need to understand an ICP, an ideal customer profile, and a buyer persona, right? When you look at buyer personas, for instance, you start to hear things like an economic buyer and a technical buyer, for instance. You also hear things like champions, influencers, and then the actual buyers. These are things that technical writers have no idea of, but they greatly influence the content that they create, because then you know who you're actually writing for, the exact problems they have, and what the solution looks like for them, what their day-to-day looks like. In our end, we usually think about what do their short-term goals look like, what do their long-term goals look like, what makes them successful, what gets them promoted. So these are some of the things to think about when looking at the content, especially if you're looking at a couple of content pieces, not just one in isolation, but a number of content that fit in like a broader content strategy. So a content funnel. I talk to technical writers and tell them this content is middle of funnel. It's just supposed to help someone consider this tool for the solution. So it's not for awareness, neither is it for decision making. And they're like, so what exactly are you talking about? So understanding content funnels, that also influences how you write content for marketing. It influences what the call to action looks like, because when you understand the content funnel, you know what part or what stage of the funnel is the user in. Are they just shopping around, or are they ready to buy?
Makes sense.
So we go from content marketing, we go all the way to content SEO. So some bits about SEO, not all of it, but what are backlinks? How do you include them in? What are short tail keywords? What are long tail keywords? And just SEO keywords in general. We laid out the funnels even better here, so that at least the person could have like a user of this roadmap understands how best to approach these. So from pillar content to research reports on the mid funnel again, which is content that's supposed to help drive consideration of a solution, right? We have generic gated content, white papers, ebooks. If you notice, for anyone listening to this, if you notice the content in the mid funnel isn't really directing someone to sign up, it's just attacking a problem and going a bit in depth to that problem. That's why you have white papers and ebooks here. Bottom
Mhm.
of funnel content, this is where you typically find the tutorials a lot of technical writers write, where the call to action is sign up to use this feature, sign up to create a database, or sign up to create an account. That's typically the call to action here. The call to action on top of funnel content is check out this tool, or check out this group of tools that could help you. Consider this tool, sending you to the website. This one sending you to create an account. Uh, so we
I
go
got.
from these to some kinds of like, what are the kinds of bottom of funnel content from customer case studies. This should also be linked to like middle of funnel, because customer case studies can be considered as yeah, actually bottom of funnel content, because they help you decide. They're showing you proof of the success of that product. So release notes and product announcements, FAQs, basically content that just helps you pay. That says, okay, now you're good, pay some money. We went from that to looking at content optimization. It's a lot of technical writers feel like once you write content, cheers, it's like peace till
Yeah,
till
it's done.
whenever. But yeah, you could make the content better. You could see that this content is doing so well that you have the opportunity to improve the call to action or improve the code. Maybe something has changed in the code that the content isn't really as useful, so you need to update it. So you need to keep an eye on
Oh
that.
yeah, there's nothing more
Yeah,
annoying than you arrive on some content, some documentation, some tutorials, and you try it, and like, oh no, sorry, that was like on a previous version, and it's just like the
exactly.
code is not working, or if it's something graphical like an application, and you're like, hey, I go into like file in that menu, and the option that you're talking to me about is not existing, it's
It's
not there.
yeah, exactly. It's been deprecated, but no one knows. And for that workflow, it's a bit difficult for the reader at that time to just figure it out.
Yeah,
They just abandon the content and go to something else.
yeah.
So content optimization, knowing like when to optimize content, which feeds into like content analysis, everything that happens after you've created the content, link shorteners, tracking different like metrics. What does conversion look like? I talked to technical writers about UTM parameters. They have absolutely no idea what those even mean. When does content age, right? When do you look in Google Analytics, for instance, and be like, oh, seems like we're not getting as much traffic? Or look in Google Search Console, for instance, and be like, okay, we're ranking number one for these problems developers are searching for. Now we're not. Maybe
Mhm.
we need to change the content in some way. So that's something technical writers could care about. And then there's the last bit, which is content distribution. How do you distribute your content? How do you make sure like the open graph data is really good, the banner image is really captivating, so someone wants to click on it? Where do you put your content? Communities. How do you post it on Reddit? You don't want to go to Reddit and sell. You,
Oh
you don't want
no,
to post
please don't.
tutorials. Exactly. You don't want to post tutorials on LinkedIn, for instance, right? How do you include it in newsletters? How do you collaborate with others to distribute your content, right? So these are some of the bits that what's a canonical link? What does it even mean to put your content somewhere and cross post it somewhere else, right? How does that affect Google's perception and ranking of that content piece? So these are things technical writers should consider. And obviously, when I wrote this, I
I
wrote
love
this
it.
wasn't keep learning. This was keep writing, which is the last bit. Is you could do all these things, but if you're still not writing or creating, then uh, you could be doing a whole lot better. So this was keep writing, but I guess the team wanted it to be.
I
keep
like to
learning.
keep
So
learning too. I mean, like I understand where you're coming from. I understand the initial goal was like keep writing, and it makes sense. But I think keep learning is good too because, like, as a
yeah.
technical writer, you need to have a certain expertise about the topic you're writing about. So you need to learn. So
Mhm.
I think both are
Yeah.
good. Both are good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
true. So again, this roadmap is supposed to make anyone a well-rounded technical writer. Any technical writer can pick one section and be like, okay, this is what I want to focus on. I just want to write top of funnel marketing content, right? But in the world we live in today, you could get like replaced. Um, just because someone else could do so much better. But if you know all these, you're well on the path to not just being a technical writer, but being a technical content leader, leading a team of technical writers eventually, if that's something anyone is considering, or just being a kick-ass IC, like independent
Yeah.
creator on a team. So yeah, that's what we have today on the roadmap.
I like that. Thanks for sharing that for free for people out there. It's available on roadmap.sh. I shared the link a couple of times when we were talking about it. Um, it's what I usually tell people. Like there's some mentality of some people like, oh, I need to keep my expertise and I need to like because like people's going to be able to compete and like come on, it's nice. It's like you're gonna have competition, it's good, but like what you're doing is like you're sharing your expertise with other people, and I feel like it's something we should all do, like trying to share that and just help other people being successful. And you know what, like there's some benefits to do that. Like there's a lot of benefits to do that, but like there's also a commercial benefit, like someone watching the video live stream right now or watching the recording because like they want to start to create more like written documentation within their company, but it's not their full-time role. And they look at that and like, oh, you know what? Maybe that was a little more complicated than I thought. Maybe we don't have like the time to hire someone. Maybe it's not a priority right now, but we still want to write written content. And like, you know what? Why not hire William or Hackmamba?
Yeah.
This is their expertise, and they're all going to be able to do that and go through all those steps. And they already have like the knowledge to create great content. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great.
That'd be
I'm
great.
always happy to help. And a lot
And
of times I just talk to people to, advise them. It keeps me sharp. It keeps me also because if you advise someone or you share like some information to them, you don't have to be partners or work with them. They don't have to
yep,
pay you. But if it works, whatever you shared with them works, you've just validated either an idea or a hypothesis that you have. And then you can go share that to like our partners and make more money from them. So some way, once you create value, it always finds a way to just like pay itself back, like come back in
exactly.
some way. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. It may not seem like that at the beginning, and obviously prioritize, especially at the beginning, if you need money, prioritize things that pay. But like once you're in a sweet spot where like, hey, you know what, I make a living, I'm okay, I could make more, or I could have more customers, but like I can also give back to the community. I think
Yeah.
it's really important to do that. One of the thing that just going back to hiring also professional to do technical writing, if you don't have a specific role within your company, if you feel like it's overwhelming, if you feel you're just not able to do it, because writing is accessible for everyone doesn't mean that everyone does it well. It's like any other things in the world, we're not good at everything. I was saying in my talk, I mean, like if all the tips that I shown you, you're like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do that, like hire someone. Because I mean,
Yeah.
like that's where all the money, because you may have the best software out there, the best product out there, if people don't know how to use it, that works
Yeah.
shit. You won't get users, you won't get customers. And usually it goes through like having like great text-based documentation. I'm a big believer of like video contents, but I'm also a big believer of like text-based content. And I think it's important for a business to have those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think mix of both. They're very good. Again, goes back to understanding who the consumer, like
Yeah.
who the reader is, or who the end user is. If you understand the state they are in, you would know if they prefer written content because they're developing. They just want to copy the code and paste it in and have it work. That's it. Or are they like binge watching and thinking about like GANs or thinking about AI tools and how deep learning works within the context of your tool. So they can just watch a YouTube video.
Yeah.
They don't want to read an article for that. So everything, once you understand the state the consumer is in, or the user is in, you can create matching content. That's how I see both working.
Yeah, I agree. So amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. That was great. Hopefully, it brings value to people listening to the show right now. On that note, William, I think we talk about a lot of things. I'm pretty sure we could still talk about a lot of things, but I feel like we reached the end of the show. It's about an hour that we're talking together. I like you, but I have other things also on my plan today.
Yeah.
And again, I try to keep those show. They're still long, but I try to keep them within about that time frame. So,
Mhm.
any last word, last thing you want to share with folks who are listening or watching the recording?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, to anyone in DevRel, just keep creating. Whether you're a manager, you're just starting out, create in some way, find a way, find the least, the way to create with the least friction, right? It could be a podcast like this, it could be writing an article, it could be writing threads, but just keep creating because with developer relations, from my experience, that's how you actually stay like relevant. That's how you stay like ageless, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. My buddy would disagree with the ageless part, but my career agree with that. But my buddy does not right now. But no, great advice.
Yeah.
I love that. And last note on my side, thanks to our sponsor, Construct, which is my employer. So if you are in the cloud native space, we have two amazing products for you. Go check Cube First or Colony. Cube First is instant GitOps platform. So if you're using Kubernetes, you want to have that production ready cluster, please give it a try. It's open source. Happy to answer any question. But again, just saying thanks because I'm able to do that live stream because of the fine folks that are my employers, Construct. So thanks, folks, for letting me do that live stream. And thanks, William, for being a guest, for being on the show, taking your precious time to, share your passion about like technical writing and also like all your tips about like how to be a great technical writer. Really appreciate that. That was a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for this is fantastic. I rarely get on podcasts that I'm not the host. So it's great for a change. And this was fantastic. Thanks, Fred.
Wonderful. My pleasure. And thanks everybody who joined us live. Thanks for the folks who watched the recording. If you have any question about technical writing, you know how to reach out to William. You can ask me question too. I'm going to be more than happy to help you if I have the answer. And on that note, have a good rest of the day and see you for the next Devrel show in 2 weeks. Bye, folks.
Cheers.